Steam curled around me, thick and heavy, wrapping my body in warmth. As I sank deeper into the bath in my Charleston home, the house was supposed to be empty. My daughter, Ava, wouldn't be home until tomorrow. So I had the night to myself. My eyes fluttered shut as I let myself unwind, my fingers lazily tracing the surface of the water, enjoying the sensation of warmth against my skin. It had been so long since I truly relaxed like this. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension melt away. Then the door swung open. A sharp inhale not mine broke the silence. My eyes snapped open. He stood there, tall and strong, frozen. His grip tightened around the towel slung over his shoulder, his chest rising and falling as if he'd forgotten how to breathe. My daughter's boyfriend. Ethan. His gaze flickered briefly, but it was enough for me to see its shock giving way to something unreadable. Heat rushed to my face, my arms darting to cover myself, but it was too late. He had seen me. Shh. Sorry. His voice cracked, his Adam's apple bobbing. Neither of us moved for a moment too long. Then he jerked away, his breath sharp as he slammed the door shut behind him. I sat there, heart pounding in my ears, skin still flushed, but not just from the bath. He thought I wasn't home. I thought I was alone. But now we both knew exactly what the other had walked in on. I should have been mortified. I should have screamed, covered myself, done something. But all I could think about was the look in his eyes. Before we get into it, make sure to like this video and subscribe. It helps the channel grow tremendously, and I truly appreciate your support. Thank you. Now let's continue. The second the door slammed, I exhaled sharply, pressing a hand to my chest. My pulse thundered beneath my fingertips. I needed to pull myself together. Grabbing a robe, I yanked it around me, but the fabric was thin, barely reaching mid-thigh, the sash the only thing keeping it closed. It wasn't the most modest choice, but I wasn't about to dig through my closet with my daughter's boyfriend downstairs in our Charleston house. Ethan. I swallowed hard. By the time I reached the kitchen, they were already there. Ava was beaming, and Ethan was sitting at the counter, one hand wrapped around a drink. He looked up the moment I walked in and stared. It lasted only a second before he dropped his gaze, shifting in his seat, his grip tightening around the glass. He wasn't supposed to be here. But then Ava turned to me, all smiles. Mum, I hope it's okay. Ethan's staying the night. I hesitated. His presence was already too much. Already too close. But what could I say? I forced a smile. Of course. Ethan lifted his glass slightly in acknowledgement, but his eyes flickered over me once more. Just for a moment. Just enough to make my skin burn. I tightened my robe. This was going to be a long night. Night had fallen, and the Charleston house had settled into a heavy silence. After dinner, Ava and Ethan had retreated to her room for the night, their laughter fading behind the closed door. I had lingered downstairs for a while, sipping tea, trying to calm my nerves, trying to shake the way his eyes had lingered on me. Now, alone in my bed, I stared at the ceiling, willing myself to sleep. Then I heard it soft at first, muffled, a quiet shift of sheets, a hushed whisper, and then a sound that made my breath freeze in my chest. A moan. I tensed. For a moment, I told myself I was imagining it, that the house was playing tricks on me. But then it came again, faint but unmistakable. I turned onto my side, heart pounding, fingers gripping the edge of the blanket. I shouldn't be hearing this. Another soft gasp slipped through the walls, followed by a hushed laugh. My stomach twisted. I should get up, turn on the TV, put in headphones, drown it out. But I couldn't move. The noises were clearer now, rhythmic, breathless, unavoidable. My face burned as I lay there, stiff, unsure what to do with myself, with this entire situation. This was wrong. I shouldn't be hearing this. Yet. No matter how hard I tried to block it out, one thought wormed its way in, one realization that made my pulse skip. Ethan was good. Too good. And I had no idea what to disclaim with that knowledge. I pulled the covers up over my head, as if that would erase what I had just heard. But it wouldn't, because now I couldn't unhear it. And worse, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The house had gone quiet again. The sounds had stopped, leaving behind a thick, suffocating silence. But sleep wouldn't come. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind refusing to settle. No matter how much I tried to push it away, it lingered the way I had frozen, trapped in the moment, unable to stop listening. With a frustrated sigh, I threw back the covers and got out of bed. I needed something to clear my head. Padding down the stairs, I made my way to the kitchen, the cool tile grounding me as I reached for a bottle of wine. I poured myself a glass, taking a slow sip, trying to shake the tension coiled in my chest. Then I felt it, a presence behind me. I turned, and there he was. Ethan, standing in the dim light of the kitchen, shirtless, wearing nothing but his underwear. I inhaled sharply, my fingers tightening around my glass. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed over his bare chest, his body still warm from where he'd been moments ago. His gaze dragged over me, slow, assessing. Then a smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. Were we too loud? His voice was low, teasing. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Heat rushed to my face, embarrassment twisting in my stomach. I shook my head, taking another sip of wine, hoping he wouldn't see how my hands trembled. Ethan did see, and he stepped closer. "Did we keep you up?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost playful. I turned away, pretending to focus on my drink. But it was impossible to ignore the heat of his body, the way he carried himself, confident, relaxed, knowing exactly what he was doing. And then my eyes flickered lower. A mistake. Because there it was, bold, noticeable. My breath hitched. He noticed, and he didn't move away. "I get it," he murmured, watching me closely. "It's a lot, isn't it?" I swallowed hard. "You should go back to bed," I said. His smirk deepened. "Are you sure that's what you want?" The space between us vanished in an instant. Ethan's fingers brushed over mine, slow, deliberate, as if waiting for me to stop him. I didn't. My breath caught as he guided my hand lower. pressing it against the undeniable shape of him solid. Hot. Unmistakable. My fingers curled on instinct. My pulse roaring in my ears. His gaze never left mine, watching, waiting, daring me, waiting. "See what you do to me," he murmured. A shiver rippled down my spine. I should have pulled away, should have left. Instead, I let him untie the sash of my robe. The fabric slipped from my shoulders. Cool air meeting heated skin, pooling at my feet. Ethan's breath hitched, his hands tracing the newly exposed curves. His touch igniting something deep, something dangerous. Then his lips were on my neck, soft at first, then firmer, bolder. A gasp escaped me, my hands gripping his arms as his mouth trailed lower, kissing, teasing, tasting. His fingers sank into my hips, drawing me closer, guiding me exactly where he wanted me. Then he went lower. A sharp breath left me as his lips found my chest, his teeth grazing skin, teasing, sending waves of sensation through me. My head tipped back, a quiet, shaky sound escaping my lips before I could stop it. Ethan groaned softly, gripping my waist. Then, in one swift motion, he lifted me effortlessly, settling me onto the cool granite of the kitchen counter. A rush of nerves and excitement shot through me, the risk, the thrill. We weren't alone in this Charleston house. At any moment, we could be caught. I barely had time to process before he pressed forward, his body against mine, his heat unmistakable. My legs wrapped around him on instinct, pulling him closer. "You're unbelievable," he murmured, his voice thick with something between awe and hunger. Then he pressed forward, slow, deliberate. My lips parted on a shaky breath, fingers tightening in his hair, his shoulders. Ethan stilled, exhaling hard against my neck, as if trying to hold himself back. Then he moved a slow, deliberate rhythm at first, his hand steadying me, grounding me. My nails dug into his back as he buried himself deeper, his breath growing heavier, rougher. The tension mounted, the need building between us, spiraling, climbing, until suddenly he pulled me off the counter, gripping my thighs tightly, lowering us both to the cool tile of the kitchen floor. Now I was on top. Ethan's hands gripped my waist, steadying me as I adjusted, his muscles tensing beneath me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, I began to roll my hips, testing the movement, testing his control. A deep groan rumbled from his chest, his hands tightening on me. His restraint was slipping. I set the pace, slow at first, watching the way his jaw clenched, the way his fingers twitched against my skin, as if resisting the urge to take over. I could feel him struggling for control, and that made me want to push him further. I leaned down, my lips hovering just over his, teasing. His breath hitched, his hands sliding up my back, pulling me closer, trying to erase the space between us. The rhythm grew urgent, a fire licking at my skin, pulling me higher until I shattered. I gasped his name, my body trembling against him, head falling forward onto his chest. Ethan groaned, his grip tightening, his body following mine seconds later, his breath warm against my temple. For a long moment, neither of us moved. We lay there on the cold tile, our bodies tangled, hearts pounding in sync. Reality crept in. the weight of what we had just done pressing into me. I should have felt guilt, shame, regret. But all I could think about was how badly I wanted more. Some choices come with consequences, but in that moment, it didn't feel like a choice at all. I knew it was wrong, but it felt too good to stop. The Charleston dawn filtered through the kitchen blinds, casting soft golden streaks across the tile floor where we still lay. My breath steadied, but my mind churned. A storm of guilt and desire clashing within me. Ethan's chest rose and fell beneath me, his warmth a stark contrast to the cold reality settling in. I pushed myself up, my hands trembling as I reached for my robe, now crumpled beside us. He watched me, silent, his eyes no longer teasing but heavy with something unspoken regret. Perhaps, or defiance. Neither of us spoke as I tied the sash, my fingers fumbling with the knot. "We can't do this again," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Ethan sat up, running a hand through his hair, his jaw tight. "I know," he said, but his tone lacked conviction. He stood, pulling on his underwear, his movements slow, deliberate, as if stalling. The air between us was thick, charged with the weight of what we'd done and the unspoken question of what came next. I turned away, gripping my wine glass, the liquid inside long gone. The kitchen felt smaller now, the walls closing in with the memory of our recklessness. Charleston's humid air seeped through the cracked window, carrying the faint scent of magnolias from the garden outside. I wanted to open the window wider, let the breeze clear my head. But I didn't move. Ethan lingered by the doorway, his silhouette framed against the dim light. "You should go back to Ava," I said, my voice sharper than intended. He nodded, but his eyes held mine for a moment too long. "Yeah," he murmured, then turned and disappeared up the stairs. I stood there, alone, the silence deafening. My skin still burned where he'd touched me, and I hated myself for it. I poured another glass of wine, the bottle clinking against the counter, and took a long sip, trying to drown the guilt that was finally catching up. Sleep never came that night. I returned to my bed, the sheets cold against my skin, and stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment, the way his hands had felt, the way his voice had dropped when he spoke my name, the way I hadn't stopped him. I pressed my palms to my eyes, willing the images away, but they clung to me, vivid and unrelenting. Outside, Charleston's night sounds crickets. Distant cars on King Street filled the silence, but they offered no comfort. Morning arrived too soon. The sun poured through my bedroom window, too bright, too cheerful for the storm inside me. I dragged myself out of bed, pulling on a loose sweater and jeans, hoping the normalcy of routine would anchor me. The house smelled of coffee, a sign that Ava was awake. My stomach twisted as I descended the stairs, each step heavier than the last. In the kitchen, Ava stood by the counter, pouring coffee into a mug. Her hair was messy, her smile bright, oblivious to the chaos she'd slept through. "Morning, Mum," she said, her voice warm. "Want some coffee?" I forced a smile. my throat tight. "Sure," I managed, taking the mug she offered. My hands shook slightly, and I prayed she wouldn't notice. Ethan appeared moments later, fully dressed now in a t-shirt and jeans, his hair still damp from a shower. His eyes met mine for a fraction of a second before he looked away, focusing on Ava. "Hey, babe," he said, kissing her cheek. The casualness of it stung, a reminder of the line we'd crossed. Ava leaned into him, laughing about something I couldn't hear over the roar in my ears. "We're heading out to grab breakfast in town," Ava said, turning to me. "There's this new place on Meeting Street, supposed to have the best biscuits in Charleston. Wanna come?" Her invitation was genuine, but the thought of sitting across from Ethan, pretending nothing had happened, made my chest tighten. "I've got some things to take care of," I lied, sipping my coffee to hide my unease. Ava shrugged, unfazed, and grabbed her purse. Ethan's gaze flickered to me again, brief but piercing, before he followed her out the door. The sound of it closing felt final, like a door slamming on the life I'd known before last night. I spent the morning alone, trying to distract myself. I cleaned the kitchen, scrubbing the granite counter until my hands ached, as if I could erase what had happened there. The Charleston sun climbed higher, warming the house, but I felt cold, hollow. I kept replaying Ethan's words. See what you do to me, and the way I'd let myself fall into the moment. I was supposed to be the responsible one, the parent, the one who set boundaries. Instead, I'd shattered them by noon. I couldn't stay in the house any longer. I grabbed my keys and walked out into the humid Charleston air. The cobblestone streets of the historic district stretching out before me. The city was alive with tourists, their chatter mingling with the clip-clop of horse-drawn carriages. I wandered toward the Battery, the sea breeze carrying the tang of salt and marsh. The old oak trees along the waterfront swayed gently, their branches heavy with Spanish moss. And for a moment, I let myself get lost in the rhythm of the city. But even Charleston's charm couldn't quiet my mind. Every step felt like a confession. Every glance from a passerby a judgment. I stopped at a bench overlooking the harbour, the water glittering under the midday sun. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Ava, texting me a photo of her and Ethan at the breakfast spot, smiling over plates of biscuits and gravy. My heart sank. She looked so happy, so unaware. I typed a quick reply, something vague and encouraging, then shoved the phone away. When I returned home, the house was still empty. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the spot where Ethan had lifted me onto the counter. The memory was too vivid, too raw. I needed to talk to him, to set things straight, to make sure this never happened again. But the thought of facing him filled me with dread, not because I didn't trust myself to say the right thing, but because I wasn't sure I could resist him if he looked at me the way he had last night. Ava and Ethan returned in the early afternoon, their laughter echoing through the house as they burst through the door. "Mum, you should have come," Ava said, tossing her purse onto the couch. The food was amazing. Ethan hung back, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. I avoided his eyes, focusing on Ava instead. "Sounds like I missed out," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm gonna take a nap," Ava announced, heading upstairs. "Ethan," You coming? He hesitated, his gaze flickering to me before he nodded. In a minute, he said, his voice low. Ava didn't notice the tension, bounding up the stairs without a second thought. The moment she was gone, the air in the room shifted. Ethan stepped closer. Not too close, but enough to make my pulse quicken. We need to talk, I said, keeping my voice firm. He nodded, his jaw tight. I know. Last night, it was a mistake. The word mistake hit harder than I expected. It can't happen again, I said, crossing my arms. Ava can never know. His eyes darkened, and for a moment I thought he might argue, but he just nodded again. I get it. I won't say anything, but his tone, the way he looked at me, told a different story. There was something unresolved, something dangerous still simmering between us. I wanted to believe we could bury this, pretend it never happened. But the way my skin tingled under his gaze said otherwise. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Ava and Ethan stayed close, their easy affection a constant reminder of my betrayal. I kept my distance, busying myself with pointless tasks, organising the pantry, answering emails, anything to avoid being alone with him. But every time I caught his eye, the air crackled, and I knew he felt it too. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting Charleston's sky in hues of pink and orange, I stood on the back porch, the humidity wrapping around me like a blanket. The garden was quiet, the magnolias glowing in the fading light. I heard the door creak behind me and knew it was Ethan before I turned. We're heading out, he said, his voice low. Ava wants to hit a bar downtown. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. I meant what I said, he murmured. But you know it's not that simple. Stop, I said, my voice sharp. This ends here. But even as I said it, my body betrayed me. Leaning slightly toward him, he noticed, his lips twitching into that familiar smirk. If you say so, he said, then turned and walked back inside. I stayed on the porch long after they left, the Charleston night closing in around me. The guilt was there, heavy and unrelenting, but so was the pull, the memory of his touch, the way he'd made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. I knew I should tell Ava, confess everything, let the consequences come, but I couldn't. Not yet. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Ava's laughter drifting through the house. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of my secret pressing harder now. I forced myself to get up, pulling on a sundress and sandals, trying to reclaim some sense of normalcy. Downstairs, Ava was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, her hair tied back in a messy bun. Ethan sat at the counter, scrolling through his phone, but his eyes flicked up as I entered. Morning, Ava said, oblivious to the tension. I'm making breakfast. You want some? I nodded, forcing a smile. Looks great. I busied myself setting the table, avoiding Ethan's gaze, but I could feel it, heavy and searching, every time Ava turned her back. We ate together, the clink of forks against plates the only sound breaking the silence. Ava chatted about her plans for the day, a walk through the French Quarter, maybe a stop at the market. Ethan nodded along, but his attention kept drifting to me, subtle but unmistakable. Each glance was a reminder of our shared secret, a thread pulling tighter with every moment. After breakfast, Ava announced she was heading out to meet a friend for coffee. "I'll be back in a couple of hours," she said, grabbing her bag. "Ethan, you okay hanging here?" He nodded, his eyes briefly meeting mine. "Yeah, I'm good." The door closed behind her, and the house fell silent. I stood at the sink, rinsing dishes, my hands moving on autopilot. Ethan lingered at the counter, his presence like a storm cloud. "We need to stop this," I said without turning, my voice low but firm. "It's not just a mistake, it's wrong." He stepped closer, his voice quiet. "You keep saying that, but you didn't stop me last night." His words cut deep, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. I turned to face him, my hands gripping the edge of the sink. "I'm trying to do the right thing now," I said. "For Ava." He nodded, but his eyes didn't waver. "And what about you? What do you want?" The question hung between us, heavy and dangerous. I wanted to scream, to push him away, to tell him to leave. But the truth was, I didn't know what I wanted, not anymore. "I want this to end," I said, finally, my voice shaking. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of him again. "You sure about that?" he asked, his voice soft, almost patronizing, almost playful. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. He took another step, his hand brushing mine, and my breath caught. The doorbell rang, sharp and sudden, shattering the moment. I stepped back, my heart racing. "Go," I said, turning away. He hesitated, then walked to the door, leaving me standing there, my hands trembling. It was a delivery, some package Ava had ordered. I signed for it, my mind spinning, and when I closed the door, Ethan was gone. I leaned against it, my chest tight, trying to steady my breathing. Charleston's humid air pressed against me, the weight of the morning heavier than ever. The days that followed were a blur of avoidance. I threw myself into work, into errands, into anything that kept me out of the house. Ava noticed, asking if I was okay, her concern cutting deeper than she could know. I lied, told her I was just tired, but the truth gnawed at me. Ethan's presence was a constant reminder, his casual touches on Ava's arm a silent accusation. One evening, a week later, I found myself alone with him again. Ava was out with friends, and I was in the living room, flipping through a book I wasn't reading. Ethan walked in, holding a beer, his expression unreadable. "We need to figure this out," he said, sitting across from me. "There's nothing to figure out," I snapped, my voice sharper than I meant. "It's over." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You don't believe that any more than I do." His words hit like a punch, and I hated how right he was. The pull was still there, undeniable, dangerous. "Then leave," I said, standing. "If you can't let it go, leave Ava." His eyes darkened, and for a moment I thought he might agree. But he stood, stepping closer. "You know I can't," he said. "And neither can you." The air crackled between us, the same electric tension from that night. I stepped back, my back hitting the wall. "Get out," I whispered, my voice breaking. He didn't move, just watched me, his gaze heavy with everything we weren't saying. The sound of Ava's car in the driveway saved me. Ethan stepped back, his jaw tight, and walked out without another word. I slid down the wall, my heart pounding, the weight of my secret threatening to crush me. Charleston's beauty felt like a mockery now, its charm a stark contrast to the chaos inside me. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. Sooner or later, the truth would come out, and when it did, it would destroy everything. But for now, I was trapped, caught between guilt and desire, unable to walk away. What would you have done? Would you have walked away or let the moment take over? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe. It helps the channel grow tremendously, and I truly appreciate your support. Thank you.